What's up guys, it's me Rhoku back with some more League content, and in this video I'm going to go through top lane champions and talk about how strong they are, or how weak they are in terms of SoloQue. This tier list right here is my patch 12.10 tier list that I made for my video a few weeks back, and I basically have it on screen right now to for us to basically tell how strong or weak they are in relation to where they used to be, to make that comparison and power a bit more clear to see. Anyway, let's just get right into it. I'm not going to take too long with everything, starting with S tier Overpowered. Fiora got nerfed in the latest patch. They cut out a percentage of her vital damage scaling. Now, I would have preferred if they went with their original proposed buff, or just cutting the base damage, but they basically nerfed her in the side lane once she gets 1 to 2 items, because they nerfed the scaling, which doesn't really impact her early laning phase at all. This basically means that Fiora is for the most part sitting tight at the top of this tier list. Akshan is still pretty strong, right? He's performing quite well in basically all ranks people have heads in, right? Akshan's roaming ability is just so overpowered for SoloQue. So yeah, it's pretty strong in terms of the newest patch. Darius is one of the best top laners in the game, and it's not even like a overstatement at all. He's really overpowered, so if you're looking for a low elo champion to ban, Darius will be one of them. But I wouldn't really ban him if I was silver, because if we look at the numbers, Darius still doesn't really perform that well in silver, bronze, or iron, right? He really starts to pick up in gold, platinum, diamond, and he's doing quite well in master as well, in my opinion at least. So yeah, he's one of the best champions in the game, and I'm pretty sure he's going to get nerfed in a patch or two, or at least I hope he does, so that the ban rate goes down. So yeah. Jax is quite strong. He has a lot of great matchups into a lot of more powerful champions here. He always scales, but on top of that, he also has, like, all you get fed on 1v9 in the game. He's basically a staple top lane SoloQue pick. Olaf. Now, they did nerf Olaf quite a bit. Like, it wasn't just one big nerf, but a bunch of little things that kind of nerfed him quite a bit. And the reason I put him here, like, this high on my previous list, was because, like, he's basically, like, one of the easiest champions here to just play, right? Olaf takes a very low amount of skill to just pick up. The only skill you need on him is just landing your axes. And, if you're playing against a person who can't dodge very well, it's not even that difficult. So I'd say I put Olaf in the lower rank, just in A tier instead of straight up S tier. Riven. I'd say Riven has stayed at this tier in terms of strength, right? Obviously, Riven is one of the most powerful SoloQue champions in the game, but, the durability changes have kind of hurt her power. If we're talking strictly, like, high elo, Riven is basically just, like, even higher than S tier, because Riven is just like it's like one of those champions where if all you can play is Riven, you're gonna be like 3, 4, 500 LP above where you normally should be. Like, I don't want to insult anyone, but Riven has been super OP in SoloQue for a while. But if we're talking every single rank in the book, then she sits tight at A+ tier, because in the lower ranks, people don't really understand how to make use of her mobility that much, right? Like, in high ranks, Riven's gonna roam, get kills, get into all the fights, but not in low ranks, so I'll put her in A tier for now. Camille is pretty strong in SoloQue. A lot of people think she's weak because, oh, she got nerfed and she's unplayable now, but it's not really the case. She's still pretty strong. Though her early laning is a bit wacky in terms of, like, if she gets into bad matchups, you can't really play the game too well. But the thing with Camille is that even into, like, the worst matchups, you have all the tools you need to survive the lane, right? Your W is a pretty good trading tool. You can get out of most bad circumstances using your E, and the most powerful aspect of her kit, and especially in high ranks, is that, like, Camille can just point-and-click ult her target to set up a perfect gank, right? This basically allows the Camille to, like, just set up the best ganks for her jungler, even if she's, like, not even close to the opposing top laner. Like, you could have the wave frozen under her turret, and you're, like, an entire screen away, but still in lane, and she'll still be able to reach you and, lock you down for her jungler to come help. So Camille is definitely very, very strong in SoloQue. Jace. I've not seen Jace that much in SoloQue, honestly. Like, nobody's really playing him, and I get the feeling that the durability patch has kind of messed him up in terms of his power level. So I'm going to put him down into A tier. This could be wrong, right? Because, again, I've actually not played against Jace that much as I used to play against him before the durability patch, but I'm just not seeing him all that much. And when I do, it's like a complete mess. Like, they don't even know how to play the game. So, I'd say that he's weaker than he used to be, but he's still, strong in terms of SoloQue. Irelia. I'd say Irelia is, like, they did buff Irelia's healing, right? And that's not really something that I don't think anybody wants in the game. Irelia is so annoying to deal with, right? And because they buffed up her healing, I'd say she's going up a tier into A tier, right? She is really, really strong on top lane, can set up really great ganks. Her champion kit kind of just lanes on its own. She scales incredibly well, and she has a bunch of great matchups. So I'd say that she's definitely stronger than she used to be. Shen. I don't think Shen's doing that much better, honestly. Like, he's remained at the same level of power as he used to be for the past two patches. Shen's usually at the top of these lists. I mean, he still is at the top of this list, but he's usually at the very top. But, the meta in top lane right now is picking an OP champion, getting fed and 1v9ing, which Shen does not really fit into that well. Aatrox. I'd say Aatrox has, gotten stronger than he used to be, definitely for sure, right? A bit more playable. Aatrox is always like a solid SoloQue champion, regardless of how many, how much a single delusional person says so. But I think the durability patch helped them out a tiny bit, and it just took a bit of while for that to kind of show up. I wouldn't say he's like that much stronger than he used to be, so like I'm kind of struggling to put him up here, right? But considering like his level of strength before, he's definitely stronger, so I'll put him up an entire tier. Gangplank. I wouldn't say Gangplank is like super awesome, powerful SoloQue champion. He mainly exists to hold lane. And like he's only up in A tier because of his high elo performance, right? Gangplank on high elo is like such a difficult champion to put down in lane because like a properly played Gangplank can use his battles to just zone you off of CS forever, right? You can never walk up to him. And even if you go even with Gangplank, I know like getting even CS versus him is like a challenge on its own. But even if you are even with him or if you have a kill up on him, he'll still be ahead of you in gold because Gangplank just generates gold by just existing, right? He's kind of the champion you like leave top lane to exist on his own. He's just gonna sit still, CS, get 2-3 items, and just start one-shotting people. But like he's not a champion. He's like basically a really overpowered version of a lane holder, one of these guys, right? So if this was all ranks, I'd put him in B tier, right? Or just straight up into C tier, lane holder. But if we're talking how oppressive he can be into some matchups in high ranks, then A tier. Garen. Garen's a pretty good, like, solid SoloQue champion. He is mostly a low elo pick because of how easy he is to play. Into any competent person, you're just gonna get your brains bashed in, right? Because Garen doesn't really have any way to outplay people. He just kind of exists. He does one thing. If that thing's not enough, you are doomed. So, like, most higher ranked players kind of understand the weaknesses of this champion, but I kind of think that Garen is quite underrated in high elo because if you put this champion in the hands of a person who can kind of get to the fights on time, get a bunch of kills, Garen can be an absolute menace because of like he could just run around the map, get cheese picks off of one or two people, and then just disappear using his move speed. It's kind of like fighting a Trick 2G Udyr. Like you can never chase him and catch him, So it's like he's definitely a menace if played correctly, if you use vision correctly to not get spotted, and then just sneak up on people, one-shot them quickly before they can even react. But, like, I wouldn't put him any higher than this tier, right? I'd say overall, I'll put him into B tier, honestly, right? Because this high elo thing that I just explained is such a rare case. He's basically just there for low elo. Gragas. They did buff Gragas a tiny bit, but I wouldn't say he's moved too much in terms of his power. He's still here, right, in A tier. Pantheon. I think Pantheon he's seen better days, honestly. Like, I don't play much Pantheon. I mostly just watch Spearshot play him, but like, you know, when I do watch him, it just kind of feels weaker compared to his level of strength before. Before, he used to be like a pretty solid SoloQue champion that if you had enough skill with him, you could definitely get a lot of work done. And he's still like that, but he just feels weaker than he used to be, so I'm going to put him down into B tier. Quinn, I'd say Quinn is still a pretty strong SoloQue pick, right? Mordekaiser, if we're talking higher ranks, he's obviously into the B tier because Mordekaiser's abilities are way too dodgeable and he's way too kiteable to be played regularly. But if we're talking all ranks, then he's definitely like a pretty overpowered pick in terms of low elo because of how like people aren't going to dodge anything, they're just going to face tag things, die to you, and then complain like idiots. So he's a pretty solid champion to pick up if you're like a silver or whatever, but in higher ranks, I just leave him up as like a counter pick or something. So yeah, let's just leave him here at A tier because he is pretty strong compared to how like, you know, strong / weak how weak he used to be, right? Renekton, I'd say Renekton has remained in this tier. No differences in terms of strength. Same for Sion. Akali, like I don't think Akali's that good in terms of top lane. Like if you pick her into a right matchup where she can't just get into level 6, then yeah, she's an absolute monster. But, you know, that just means that she's there for counter picking essentially, right? She just doesn't have the early to put up a good fight against any of these champions, right? Which means that, you know, there's not going to be prio in top lane, which in the end leads to her basically not being able to participate in top lane fights, in top side fights. Cho'Gath. Cho'Gath is definitely being slept on. His silence is really clutch in the current meta. If you land his abilities, he's quite strong. And when Cho'Gath gets going, like, it's really tough to put him down, right? His range is actually quite long, which means that Cho'Gath can actually interact with teams and the like champions without getting too much in their face, okay? This basically means that, like, even though he is a melee champion, he has a very long area of like influence, I guess, in terms of what he can do, right? So like he's not gonna be like a Jax who has to get straight up into the thick of the fight to participate. He can kind of pick people off and just poke at them from a distance and then walk up when the time is right? Like if you're like on a more mobile team, Cho'Gath can definitely get a lot of work done as like a range catch or whatever, right? Kayle. I'd say if you like pick Kayle into like a melee matchup that she can just kite, then she's absolutely like crazy. But in terms of just regular SoloQue, Kayle kind of exists to be farmed by the top lane and the enemy jungler. Like if you pick Kayle, you better be used to just giving up CS, because if you just walk up, you are free food just to be killed. And like even if there isn't a jungler, Kayle's 1v1 outside of like level 1 is just completely horrible. She can't really put up a decent fight against anybody that's like has any strength early. So you're not going to be getting fed off of lanes all that much as Kayle. Again, if she is up against somebody she can kite easily, then I guess she's playable, but that is a massive, massive if. Kled. Kled is a pretty good champion if you're fighting someone who doesn't really understand the matchup, if you're fighting someone who's filled, because the thing with Kled is that if he gets fed, he is like an absolute monster, right? Kled gets so much base stats that if he has a level lead, he's going to have like a ton of health, and like he doesn't even have to build any health to get that, right? He's just going to have a bunch of tanky stats by just existing. And with a level lead, Kled is absolutely just a nightmare to deal with, and like he can just be like the damage, the engage for his team and pick off targets, like by just like if somebody's on a side lane farming alone, he can just ult them and catch them. So like he's quite versatile, but for him to do all these things, Kled has to get fed, okay? That's the big thing with this champion. Unfortunately, a lot of champions have really good matchups into him, or like it's like a skill matchup, right? He doesn't have that many crazy good matchups in his in his matchup list. I don't know. But like the difficulty with Kled, like I said, is just winning the lane, right? So if you're in high ranks and you can play this champion to like the absolute limit, or if you're in low ranks where nobody can play champions, or If you're up against somebody who's filled or they're just bad at top lane, then Kled is just an absolute 1v9 champion, but those are a lot of ifs and stuff. Kled is also like very great at working with ganks, dives especially. He can drop aggro while he's tanking it, so like he's quite good at just like working with his jungler and his team. So I'd say I could just keep him B tier, right? Like, yeah, just keep him around here. Rengar got slightly nerfed, but that really hasn't changed his position all that much, so I'd just keep him in B tier. Rumble didn't really touch him too much, right? He's just the same-ish tier. Nothing too special. Nothing to see here. Cover it up. Sett. Sett is in one of the worst positions he's ever been as a champion. He's usually a very solid SoloQue pick, but now it's like, you know, the fun time's over for Sett, I guess. He's still pretty decent, right? He could be worse, but I don't know, man. The times haven't been too kind to our meathead over in top lane. Trundle, I'd say his position is basically the same as it used to be. Urgot, same. They buffed Yorick's like creep health, and I think they also buffed the maiden health, but I wouldn't say that has changed his position too much. You just gotta pick him into a lane that he can win. Otherwise, you're not gonna have too great of a time to just like sidling with this guy. Vayne, a great champion for just messing with melee characters in top lane. She's just an absolute menace if you counterpick correct things with her. And if you pick her into the right kind of team that can't just like one-shot her with a thought, you can absolutely just 1v9 games with Vayne. But like with Vayne, she can potentially be insanely powerful, but you gotta know how to play her and you gotta pick her into the right team. So those are like the things gating her from getting any higher. Singed. They didn't nerf Singed, didn't they? Like, they did actually nerf Singed, but I don't think this has really changed his strength all that much, right? I'd say he's still in the same tier, just a silly little champion doing the silly little running thing. Okay, next tier. Cassiopeia, same tier. Kennen, same tier. Malphite, just a really bad counterpick. Poppy, again, another bad counterpick for, like, some of the mobile champions up here. If you pick her into, like, a Riven or something, like, that champion cannot play the game in teamfights. Teemo, again, like, I don't know, man. I never see Teemo, like, in my games, honestly. I get the feeling that if you kind of place your shoes properly and play matches properly, he can be, like, a B-tier pick, right? But for the most part, he's just there for, like, low-elo, right? If you look at his play rate, it's like he's so popular in low-elo because of how simple he used to play. But when you get into higher ranks, he's kind of just, like, you know, not that played often, which kind of means that he's not that strong. But the thing with Teemo is that he has a lot of tricks up his sleeve, right? He's got a lot of little, like, guerrilla tactics he can use to just cheese kills and get picks. And also his blind is quite clutch into some of these matchups that rely on auto attacks. So I'd say that if you play him, like, all you've done your whole life is play Teemo, you're a Teemo 1 trick, you know all his tricks, you actually use shrooms intelligently to block off, like, choke points that people go through, then he's a great champion. But for the most part, he is just a low elo counterpick top laner. I'll put him in B tier. Just because I think he looks adorable. Anyway, Mundo. They nerfed Mundo for some reason. Like, Mundo was not doing well at all, and they just turned around and nerfed the guy. But, yeah, I guess he's just there to exist in lane. Gnar, same-ish deal. He kind of exists to set up plays for his team and his jungler with his big form. But aside from that, he's not really a top lane presence. He doesn't have great matchups. I think he gets eaten up a lot by a lot of these champions. So he's just there to hold lane to be a team-fighting CC machine. Graves, not much change here. Same deal with Karma. Same deal with Vladimir. Same with Heimer. Illaoi, I'd say Illaoi just kind of sucks. Like, the more I've seen gameplay of her, like, she just feels so horrible to play. Like, she was bad before the durability change, but she's even worse, in my opinion. Like, just such a freakazoid champion. Like, when you look at the numbers that they nerfed in the durability update, they cut her, like, her healing out so disproportionately. where every single tentacle that you used to heal for 5% now heals for 3%, which is a 40% decrease in healing, which is way more than what the other healer champions got. So yeah, Illaoi is quite terrible. Volibear. I'd honestly put Volibear back into the counter pick territory, right? Like, if you pick him into a juggernauty champion or whatever that you can just bully and kill and snowball, he's quite good. But he kind of runs into the rest of the top lane issues that are like, you know, if he's behind it, he sucks. He's not actually that good at things unless he's fed. Like, his CC isn't that good, it's just one point and click thing. His damage just sucks unless he's fed. And, like, his main thing is just chasing people down and killing them. I feel like Volibear is a lot better of a jungler than he is a top laner at this point. So, yeah. Tom Kench. Tom got a lot of massive buffs. Like, they just turned around and buffed, like, every single one of his abilities. Like, just straight up. So, yeah, Tom is doing quite well. Like, they just legit buffed everything, man. So, like, he's back on the menu if you want. Like he's a pretty good champion for low elo, because in low ranks you're really looking for characters that you can't mess up, like your Mordekaisers, your Toms, your Olafs that you just can kind of bash your brain into the enemy with, right? So he's definitely a great low elo pick. Anybody who kind of understands his kit is gonna destroy him in high elo, I'd say. Like, he's kind of just like there to trick you, get 2-3 kills, and then be unkillable. Because once Tom does win lane, he is such a threat. Because, like, not only is he insanely tanky with his shield, but, like, aside from just that knock-up thing, I think that's his W, there's not really much you can do against Tom, right? His tongue lash is, like, not dodgeable, his ultimate is point and click, and he kind of just breathes on you and gets his stacks on you. So, like, I'd say Tom is pretty good in low ranks. In high ranks, because if you are not aware of his tricks, you should stay away from him. But if you are aware of how you can kind of just use your cheese mechanics to get cheese kills all people, then he's pretty good as well. Trinda. Trinda got a bunch of buffs, right? He really desperately needed them. They buffed his ultimate cooldown, and then they also buffed his Q. I think they buffed the healing per fury and the base amount. I don't think the heals are that great, so I'm going to put him into niche, but he's definitely better than he used to be, like, way back. Nasus, I'd just put him in the niche tier. If you can pick him into a team where you won't get your saddle tossed every 2 minutes by the enemy jungler, then I guess he's okay. But, like, Nasus just gets completely destroyed by backline damage, which, you know, there is a lot of in the game right now. You know, he's very prone to just being locked down and killed, because all he does is just walk, right? Swain. I'd say Swain is still D tier, right? He kind of does suck to play in top lane. I wouldn't say that, like, he's that much stronger top, because, again, Swain's claw thing is so inconsistent as CC that any champion that can just get on top of him just kills him instantly. So I wouldn't really rank him too high. I'd say he's horrible. Yeah, I really can't. I didn't see this champion being that strong at all. Yasuo's the same, Maokai is the same, Lily is the same, and Lucian is the same. Alright. That is pretty much it for this tier list. Let's see if I missed any champion. Any one of these guys can be played in top lane. Don't think so. I think we got everybody covered, or almost everybody, aside from just a few fringe picks that some silver in the YouTube comments is going to throw at me. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for this video. I'll see you later. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.